Welcome, everybody, to this special edition of In the Circle, live from the Big 12 tournament here in Oklahoma City. We are right here at the stadium. Eric Lopez with you, and from Oklahoma City. It's the quarterfinal day of the Big 12. And look who's back with me after taking, MIA the first day. Victor Anderson joining me. Vic, you were missed by the audience. We had, of course, I'm in Oklahoma City, and, of course, we had a fan bring up the fact, hey, is there going to be a fire alarm drill?
We're still on that after all these years.
I kid you not. Somebody brought it up on the chat room yesterday. So that has become one of the more famous moments in the history of the show for some reason. But thank you. Hopefully we don't have
depending on your preference.
Coming up here, we're going to be on it up until top of the hour, where BYU will take on Oklahoma State, the first of 4 games today in the Big 12 Championship. We will set you up for the quarterfinals. We'll preview each game after an incredible day of softball on Wednesday, especially here and at the SEC tournament in Auburn. Justin McLeod is in Auburn. He will join us in about 15 minutes to talk about the SEC tournament. They had 2 14-inning games yesterday, played about 14 hours of softball basically on the field. And as we talked, it is currently raining at Auburn. Justin will give us an update on the weather and what that could mean for the SEC tournament. That's coming up on this show. Plus Vic will ask me some of the results elsewhere in the country. Ashton Slaughter, of course, helping me out this week from D1 Softball, will also join the show. And Vic will get to talk to about the Big 12 tournament so far. Of course, this is his 3rd year covering the tournament, Vic. It's a beautiful day here, Victor, in Oklahoma City. Glorious day. But what a day we got set up. Oklahoma State BYU to kick things off at 11 a.m., followed by Oklahoma and Kansas, Texas Tech, and then the nightcap, UCF and Baylor. But we had a heck of an opening round here at the Big 12 tournament with 2 games decided by 1 run. Kansas holding off a Houston rally late, a 6-5 win for Kansas, ends a 10-game losing streak, huge for McFalls and company. And then one of the wildest games I ever seen in person. I was expecting it to be wild, and it did not disappoint. Texas Tech, Vic, comes back from a 6-0 deficit in the 4th inning, chipping away. They tie it up in the 7th inning, and then Kaylee Wyckoff with the walk-off homer in the bottom of the 8th gives Texas Tech a 10-9 victory. We'll hope to hear from the Kaylee Wyckoff, my chat with her later in this show. Plus, if you go to our YouTube channel, which if you're watching this show, you are right now, and In the Circle SB, all the Big 12 press conferences are going to be posted there exclusively here on In the Circle. Vic, what's your big storyline from here in Oklahoma City now, based on how we've set this up?
Well, I think the biggest thing, Eric, is as you alluded to, Kansas and Texas Tech keeping their NCAA tournament hopes alive. Kansas needed that win versus Houston. 10-game losing streak. Big victory for the Jayhawks, but now you got to take on Oklahoma, who are still scoring. They got the losing Bedlam in Norman last weekend. If Kansas somehow stuns Oklahoma, I think the Jayhawks punch their ticket to the tournament. Texas Tech, on the other hand, if you remember, last weekend, Texas absolutely dominated Craig Snyder and company en route to winning the Big 12 regular season championship. So a chance for the Red Raiders to get some payback. I see them in the same situation with Kansas. If they beat the Longhorns, they're in the field of 64. But first of all, Eric, you are there in the finally finished renovations in Oklahoma City. How have our friends at the Big 12 treated you, sir, so far this morning?
It's incredible. Vic, I'm going to show you here. Hopefully I do a good job of this with the audience. Look at the field right now. They're working on the field. Look at that, Vic. What do you think?
We're seeing nothing but sky. Tilt your laptop down a little bit if you can.
How about
there? You go.
There you go.
There you go. A little bit. Oh,
there's
the ground crew. There's the ground
crew. There's the ground crew right there getting ready. It is gorgeous, Victor. The renovations. Were you here 21 with the renovations? They weren't all done, were they? When you were here?
I was here at 19 when they announced the renovations, and 21 where they kind of started most of the renovations, but not in its final form, so to speak. So I'm excited.
It's incredible. I'm in the second. It's incredible here. I'm in the first. I'm in the second level here, which is all the radio booth, radio row, I like to call it. and the ESPN booth as well. It's fantastic. The Big 12 has been great, fantastic. Shout out to Josh Conrad, the media relations at the Big 12, and all the good folks. They've been fantastic. First run event. Man, and it's special, Vic, and I tweeted this out yesterday. The scenery here is nothing like it in the sport of softball. I've compared it to the Rose Bowl in college football. The pageantry, the scenery. Like just watching softball here, this is like there's no other place to. This is where everybody wants to play. Obviously, at the end of the month, at the end of the year, at the World Series, but here at the Big 12 Championship, it's a big event, and it's going to get bigger today with Oklahoma State, Texas playing, and of course, the final time Oklahoma and Texas will play in this Big 12 tournament. But it's just gorgeous here with this stadium, what they've done. Obviously, now it's known as Devon Park. That was announced on Monday, so it's gorgeous. But we had some great softball yesterday. To your point, I think Texas Tech's in a better shape than Kansas. I believe their RPI unofficially still in the 30s, which is good. I think they have some good resumes. I'd still have them in as of this morning, and I think they're going to stay in. That was a gutsy win. They needed to win that game, and they found a way. I know you're concerned as if the score gets out of hand against Texas. Maybe that hurts them a little bit. We'll see. Kansas, I don't know what to make. Kansas's resume, if you go by body of work, is not bad. The problem is just the tail end of the season really hurts. But here's the good news for teams like Kansas and Texas Tech. A lot of people are losing. Penn State lost to Maryland in the Big Ten opening round tournament. Penn State has finished the season losing 6 out of 7, losing 2 out of 3 to Rutgers, and losing to Maryland. Maryland's a quad 4 game. Rutgers is 2 quad 3 losses. Not a strong finish for Clarissa Crowell and the Nittany Lions. They're going to be dead on the bubble. I think they're going to be one of the last teams in or one of the first teams out. And it's going to be interesting what this year's committee, what do they value? Do they value the marquee wins? Do they value teams winning the games they're supposed to? Schedule strength? That's what we don't know. That's what makes this so mysterious come Selection Sunday. But I think the good news for Kansas and Texas Tech is they took care of business yesterday while other teams did not. And I think the Big 12 chances of getting 7 in is still alive. I'm not saying it's I would make it an overwhelming favorite, but I do think it's still alive, Vic. And I definitely think 6 is very solid there. But obviously, a lot of work to be done. You mentioned it. Kansas and Texas Tech both have a tall order, both playing against Oklahoma and Texas, Vic. The question is, if you had to, which one of those two do you give a puncher's chance to maybe pull that upset?
Oh, I would have to say Texas Tech because I feel more confident that Texas Tech, with that momentum from last night and the offense clicking, can match run for run with the Big 12 Player of the Year, Reese Atwood, and the Texas offense. I think Oklahoma coming into their home away from home at exit 132A, that sting from Bedlam still fresh. This is where Oklahoma starts to get into form. And I've said this many, many times. And Fang Nai, you can tell all your Sooner fans, and I'm going to say this once again. Beating Oklahoma in April in Austin, that's one thing. That's impressive. Beating Oklahoma in Bedlam, final time you're playing conference rivals in May in the regular season is another thing. Beating the Sooners in the postseason in Oklahoma City is an entirely different monster. And this is where I think Texas Tech has the best chance out of them in Kansas to try and advance to the Big 12 semifinals, enhancing their chances of making the NCAA tournament.
Oklahoma State has just arrived on the field. This is such a large field. Teams have already been here, but this place is so spread out that they don't necessarily hang out here at the stadium until about less than an hour before the game. First game of the day, Oklahoma State and BYU. I think it's a fascinating matchup. You'll get to talk to Ashton Slaughter a little bit about that game coming up later on the show. But I'm very fascinated to see what Oklahoma State, how they come out. Is there a Bedlam hangover? Does Lexi Kilfoyle, the Big 12 Pitcher of the Year, pitch in this game? Do they try to save her for the semis? Do they try to save her in relief? I'm fascinated against a BYU team that can hit the ball really well, Hunter Avon and company, and beat Oklahoma State earlier this year. In Provo, Oklahoma State won the series 2 out of 3, but BYU took a game. I'm fascinated by this first game, Vic, that will set the tone. BYU, I have in my first 4 out. they are still in the mix, I think, for the NCAA tournament. Their non-conference schedule is not great, but you look at some of the wins they have. As I wrote on the Big 12 preview on D1Softball.com, other than Texas, BYU is the only team in the conference to have beaten both Oklahoma and Oklahoma State.
Yeah,
Might be the only other team in the country to have done that, I think. I don't know. But
yes.
So they're dangerous. They're resilient. And then let's say they were to upset Oklahoma State here and make a run at the Big 12 tournament. Who's to say they don't make it into the field of 64 with some of the wins they have? They have wins over Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech. They have a win against Ole Miss, which is looking better and better by the day. Their resume is good. The non-conference schedule is probably what's going to keep them out. But who knows? That's what the mayhem is all about if they could pull this upset here.
And this is where the fluidity of the bubble, so to speak, benefits BYU. Because let's say they stun Oklahoma State today, and if Oklahoma advances, they beat Oklahoma again in the semifinals tomorrow, which is entirely possible because they beat them in Norman earlier this year. And BYU makes it to the Big 12 championship game against Texas. Who's to say with Penn State losing early in the Big 10 tournament? Does BYU's run cost either Kansas or Texas Tech? Because the Big 12 can still get 7, but at 17 can be BYU instead of even the Jayhawks or the Red Raiders.
Right. No, that's a great point. So I think this is a big game early, and I'm really interested to see if you're a bubble team, you're rooting for probably Oklahoma State to win. You're rooting for Oklahoma to win. And of course, if Oklahoma and Oklahoma State were to win their games today, that would set up Bedlam for tomorrow. Oh, by the way, we're going to be on an hour before the first semifinal here in Oklahoma City. Make a note of that.
Yes, we are. We are.
Of course, you mentioned Texas Tech. We're going to play here in a couple of moments. My quick chat with Kaylee Wyckoff, who I talked to before the season. You notice, Vic, that everybody that's come on the podcast is doing well, especially in the Big 12.
We can have a separate live stream just listing the guests that we've had who've been on this show this year who have done pretty well. Let's see. We've got the Big 12 Player of the Year, Reese Atwood, the Big 12 Pitcher of the Year, and Lexi Kilfoy, about the Big 12 Coach of the Year, and Mike. Well, I mean, it usually, if you are on the podcast, you had a pretty good year, and the Big 12 is no exception to that.
Well, we will answer some of your comments as the show goes on. Vic will actually have to read them because, boy, it is bright here in this press box.
I don't know if you're aware of this, Eric, but 11 a.m., like 10 a.m. Central Time in Oklahoma City in May, the sun is you might have to. Yeah, we.
So I'm just saying, you're in charge of reading the comments, Vic, because
I'm shades in solidarity for you, sir, in Ashton in the press box, having to deal with that bright sun. We're still working on some technical issues. If you notice, ladies and gentlemen, we've upgraded to a different layout. Thanks to our friends at StreamYard. Of course, with us being a D1 softball, we're upgrading on some things. So we're working on the layouts. We're working on some technical issues. We're trying to get the Wyckoff audio that Eric had yesterday at last night after their win.
It's on social media. It's on social media on D1 Softball on Twitter. In case
at Eric Lopez Elo and also on D1Softball.com. You can find that out. Also, Eric, speaking of D1Softball.com, on the latest D1 Softball podcast with Jenna Becerra and Amanda Lorenz, they talked to the newly minted Big 12 Pitcher of the Year, Lexi Kilfoyle, prior to their trip to Oklahoma City in the Big 12 tournament. So make sure you catch out that latest episode of the D1 Softball podcast, powered by X2 Cognition, wherever you get your favorite podcast. Now, Eric, I do have to ask you this question. Yes, Fang. Eric's dealing with the now Eric's dealing with the internet issues like I dealt with in my hotel room a few years ago. Now, if he has a fire alarm, I'm just going to be rolling on the floor laughing behind him. So I have to ask you this question, Eric.
That's right. Yes.
With Oklahoma State, and we'll get to that question real quick before we get.
All right, Maranthia Bell. Maranthia, by the way, the press conferences you can check on In the Circle SB here on the YouTube channel.
Yes. All of our post-game press conferences available on our In the Circle SB YouTube channel. So type in the Circle SB. You'll find our YouTube channel right there. You'll get the Big 12 press conferences, as well as all of our post-game press conferences that we're having for you in Oklahoma City. Well, Eric's going to be playing in an hour in Oklahoma City. They were supposed to be playing right now in Auburn, Alabama, but Mother Nature is saying not really. So we will
You don't say.
from an undisclosed location somewhere in Auburn, Alabama. Our good friend Justin McLeod from D1 Softball. First of all, Justin, we'd like you to put your meteorologist hat on, if you will, and give us a latest update on the situation in Auburn and Tennessee and LSU.
It's raining.
Very good. That's to the point.
No, it's coming down pretty hard. We're looking at a significant several-hour delay in my mind.
Whoa!
Just looking at the radar, my amateur meteorologist self, as you dubbed me. I think we're looking at a several hours delay just because, I mean, you've got 4 games we're supposed to play today. One was supposed to be 15 minutes in now. I'm not even sure both teams even went through their entire hitting warm-up. Like, the radar just doesn't look good. I think when I looked at the radar, we've got a small pocket of open. We've got some storms following that. But I think later afternoon, I think we've got a little bit of a gap maybe. So, there's also a storm cell to our north that does not look good if it happens to move towards the south. So, I mean, I'm no meteorologist. I can tell you right now, not only is the rain coming down pretty hard, but whatever the thing was we learned in grade school about the distance or the time between the lightning and the thunder tells you how close the storm is. Yes. The lightning and thunder are right on top of each other.
Ooh.
Well, Justin, I don't want to rub it in, but Justin, I'm not going to rub it in, but here's our weather right now here in Oklahoma City, just so you know. I don't know if you can see that, Justin. It's pretty bright. It's pretty bright here. It's pretty bright. Also, Justin,
you talking about insult to injury. Good Lord,
I kid you not. I kid you not, Justin. I'm not making this up. In fact, Ashton Slaughter is with me. He's going to join the show later, but I'm going to bring him in here because he's going to verify this. Big 12, huge Dr. Pepper fans here. Tell them how many Dr. Peppers are in this in the media spread for the media food.
It's almost uncountable. It really is. There's it's been a Coke venue previously, so it caught me off too. I came in maybe think I was going to get a Coke Zero, a Coke for those that may not lean diet versions, and next thing I know, I walk in and you think that we're in a Dr. Pepper factory the way that there's all the Dr. Peppers here. Yeah, Eric's not lying.
Justin, what did you do? You put the application. Did you say you were coming? I told people I'm not Justin McLeod here. I'm not. Come on. What's going on here? Anyway.
No, just indoctrinating the world to Dr. Pepper little by little.
All right. So anyway, that's my inside. A couple of jokes there for you, Justin. But now let's get serious here. With this weather, obviously it's going to mess up this schedule for the SEC tournament. How do you get this tournament in if they don't? Let's say they get washed out most of today. You still got a ton of games to go here.
I mean, I think ideally you try to get at least 2 games in, even if that means we don't start until the late afternoon. If you get 2 games in, if you get the morning block in, you've got tomorrow. You do have Saturday. If you need to push games, you've got time to do it. To me, if the storm systems actually are out of here by a certain point, if we could play 2 games today, to me, and also based on just what I think is going to happen, 2 games is ideal, I think, today, based on what the weather looks like right now. If you play 2 today, then it's fair and equitable for those 2 teams to play each other tomorrow on the same amount of rest. And then if you play the other 2 quarterfinal games tomorrow, those 2 teams are on the same amount of rest for a semifinal tomorrow night. It's obviously not ideal for those 2 teams because, from a pitching staff perspective, et cetera, but at least it's equitable. At least, the 2 teams that might play are on the same, their ace pitchers are on the same amount of rest or lack of rest, that kind of thing. To me, that's probably the most likely and most ideal given the circumstances. If we can get 2 games in today, I think we're winning. Play 2 tomorrow, play the semi tomorrow night.
Yeah.
So there's no scenario.
That's the hope.
You see that you get the the morning session played today, get those 2 games in, and then you play the other 2 quarterfinals and then the semifinals on Friday, just for that kind of competitive balance situation?
I mean, the competitive balance side of it is the most important piece because we've seen some of these. I think it was it College Station 2019 where we bumped 1 game, like we played 3 and bumped 1 to the next day, and you don't want that because then one team has played the night before, able to sleep and rest up. The other team is playing a morning game and then the evening game, so you don't want that kind of situation. So the competitive balance is the most important piece of it. What shape that takes on gets interesting because even if we only play 2 games today, you're talking about you're still going to play 4 games tomorrow, 2 quarters, 2 semis. Well, you don't want to bump 1 semi, for instance, so you're hoping for good weather all day tomorrow because you don't want to bump 1 semi,
Right?
and then have the final with 1 team on rest and 1 team with no rest. So, I mean, I think the competitive, outside of the safety and the weather, like the prerequisite stuff, I think the competitive balance is the next on the list of the most important factors that got to play into it.
Justin, let's bring this up here. Obviously, you had a marathon day, which we'll get to in a moment. Yesterday on the field, today looks like it's a marathon day off the field. Mother Nature's deciding to play maybe a 14-inning rain delay on you. But
oh god,
every team is in this tournament. Next year, Oklahoma and Texas join. It's going to be 15 teams. At what point is too much for a conference tournament here? Because these marathon days are not good for television. It's not good, in my opinion, for anybody. I know they will never reduce the number of teams to make the tournament. I understand that. But this is not I mean, as long as you're going to be playing SEC tournaments down south, you're going to have these issues. You know, like Arkansas, right? We had weather issues there as well. This is going to be not going to go away as an issue every year.
No, it's always going to be. Like, literally yesterday, we were sitting on press row, and I said to someone, we have an annual extra inning game, and we have an annual weather delay at the SEC tournament. It's just pretty much a prerequisite. It's a rite of passage to the SEC softball tournament every year. I mean, you're always going to have the weather in the South. It's just going to happen. Yeah, we sat through something very similar in Fayetteville last year, an hours-long rain delay to start the day. I think we ended up getting in more games that day than I expected. Maybe we'll do the same today. Cross your fingers. But, no, I mean, at what point is too much? I don't know. Because the problem is when you have a tournament like this and every team, even the not-so-good teams, are of a notable RPI and have postseason chances and all that kind of stuff, you're not the conference is not going to want to leave them out because then you look, Ole Miss wins, the bottom seed wins on Tuesday, plays yesterday. They're never going to want to do away with that. So it's never going to change. At what point is too much? I mean, truth be told, these are really great games. Is 13 too much? Probably. Like, even the Big Ten has 14 teams. The bottom 2 don't make the tournament. The marathon days are going to be a part of it. That's a prerequisite just because any number of teams are going to play 4 games a day. We do it at the World Series on Thursday still even. That's not changing. So I don't think it's the marathon days that ought to make a difference to it. I think just not getting too much bigger because as it is right now, you think about it, if we had played 3 games on Tuesday, 3 play-ins or whatever, well, what if one of them got rain delayed? Then you're pushing one of them to Wednesday. Then what are you doing on Wednesday to Thursday? So I think
that's my point, right? The margin for error is going to be reduced. The margin of error, Justin, is going to get reduced.
I think we're okay where we are. 13 teams can live with that, whatever. I don't love the idea of being too much bigger. Doesn't mean they're not going to do it. They're going to do it. Just don't love the idea.
They're going to do it because they can.
All right. Yeah, well, good luck to them. We'll see how that goes. Meanwhile, breaking news, Oklahoma State has broken out a game of hacky sack right now. It's intense, boys. Let me see. I'm going to give it a quick look here. Hacky sack right here, live, in the circle. Only here you get this kind of coverage. Look at the sky, Justin. Blue. I don't know what the sky looks like at all.
Just rubbing it in Justin's face. Just rubbing it in Justin's face.
I can tell you the sky in Auburn is not blue.
Not blue. No.
Listen,
Not
gentlemen,
blue.
tell your buddies in the SEC that keep whining and wanting to move the World Series to the South. No, thank you. We're happy here. Thank you very much. You'll go enjoy Hoover, Alabama there, and Auburn, Alabama. Yeah, because people say, yeah, I want to go down there for a week to Auburn, Alabama. You know who says that? Nobody. Nobody ever says. But anyway, Justin McCall is in Auburn for this week, alongside Paige Halstead, coverage for D1 softball. Let's get to the on the field. Historic day. Not one, but two 14-inning games took place at the SEC tournament yesterday. LSU beating Alabama in 14 innings to kick things off. And then Georgia comes from behind to beat Auburn in 14 innings. Justin, which of those two games are you still kind of blown by as far as of those two 14-inning games?
Probably Georgia and Auburn. I mean, LSU and Alabama is what it is. Like, we knew what the offenses for both those teams have been doing the last few weeks, so I don't think there's any surprises there. Now, would I have preferred something other than a 14-inning game to start the tournament or to start the day? Yes, I absolutely would have preferred anything other than that. But I think that kind of between the two is a little closer to what you would expect. I mean, Georgia and Auburn, I really didn't expect to be a blowout. Could have been. Didn't really expect it to be. Don't think I had 14 innings in that one either. But then the way that one ended, that 14th inning with, McCrary's 3-run shot, Auburn takes a 5-2 lead. The place goes wild even at that time of night. It's like, oh, they finally broken through, and look how they broke through. It's not like a 1-run lead you scratched across. It's a 3-run shot. Then you get to the bottom of the inning, and you have an error. I don't know if they were actually classified as errors or not. When I say error, I mean it was actually an error, not necessarily it was an error in the book. But, you have one that goes off Annabelle Weedra's glove, runner at first. Then you have one that goes off Shelby Lowe's glove. She can't find it in the circle. Now you have runners on first and second. Now you have Jada Kearney at the plate. What does Jada Kearney do? She does what Jada Kearney does. Hits a 3-run shot. It's tied ball game. I think everyone at that point was shell-shocked, not going to lie. And then Sarah Gordon hits the walk-off shot. So I think, to me, Georgia and Auburn, for both reasons, the fact that it was so tight for so long, so low scoring. If you told me we were going to go a lot of extra innings, I would have thought it was probably a high-scoring shootout. But then the 14th inning turned into the high-scoring shootout by itself. So between the two, that's the one that probably gets me more. I think LSU and Auburn was kind of chalk to me personally.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting if they can get the games in. Georgia keeps their top 8 seeds possibilities still alive. So for LSU, Alabama, if things get crazy, they may not host. I think they will. They're lucky this is a down year for hosting candidates. Otherwise, I don't think Alabama would host. But I think because it's a weak year and they have good metrics, they'll probably sneak in as a host. Probably should be a 15 or a 16 seed hosting spot. We'll see. And then Ole Miss, I think they're in. I think everybody's in from the SEC based on that. So we'll see what happens. Let me ask you this, and then we'll let you go here with one or two more quick questions. Obviously, everybody's well known. Auburn eliminated Mickey Dean. This is his final year at Auburn. They announced that he was stepping down earlier this season. I'm curious, Justin, since you've been there, has the chatter about who's going to be the next Auburn head coach picked up around the tournament, or has it died down because people are focused on the tournament? What's the mood about that situation right now down there?
Neither. I mean, I don't think it's picked up because there's been enough of a time period between Mickey Dean announcing that he was leaving at the end of the year and this tournament that it's not still fresh in people's minds. So I think it's in people's minds, and as I speak, boys, the sun is peeking through the gray skies. This is the South for you. Welcome to the South, boys.
I feel like I helped will that in. I helped the sky. I showed him the sky. I motivated Auburn to wake up and get the blue skies. Anyway, continue.
We'll see how long the sun sticks around. No, so I think there's been enough period of time where it's not just the biggest and most major topic on people's minds anymore. So I don't think the chatter's necessarily picked up. I don't think it's died down because I think it's at the same level it's been at for a couple of weeks now, where everybody kind of knows, the timeline. They kind of know we kind of all know what we're expecting. And now it's not the most prevalent thing right now, so it's just not at the forefront of the minds. I mean, to me, I think that's kind of where it is. It's still there. Everybody's conscious of it. It comes up on the broadcast, whatever else. But I think that's kind of where it is. It's just kind of, it is part of it. It is a thing. And the one thing I will say is I'm glad it's not. I'm glad it's not dominating the storylines. I'm glad the tournament is giving so much on field that a coaching happening is not dominating the SEC tournament storylines. Like, TV and all of us out there in those media row tents could certainly be running with, Mickey Dean's last show, even, Maddie Penta's last show in front of her home crowd. And, we can go with all these off-field storylines. We could dig really deeply into the Auburn coaching search. Okay, what is, Mickey Dean's retiring? Oh, Emily Carasoni, what's it mean for her?
And we lost Justin. I don't think Mother Nature took to account of Justin poking fun at the weather.
I think you're right. I think you're right, Vic. That's rough times over there at Auburn. Now, what did I tell you? We're the best place in the world to be at, Oklahoma City, instead of Auburn. Hopefully, we'll get Justin back. If not,
I think the phone was out of juice after all those innings of softball he got to watch yesterday / early this morning. 2 14-inning games. My goodness gracious. It is what it is, people. Hey, live streaming ain't nothing better. Oh, there he is.
The show on the road, baby.
Oh, there's Justin. Hey, Justin, apparently the phone heard Auburn talking. It's like, nope, you're good. You're on timeout.
Well, remember what I said about the sun coming out? I think it was a sign of the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm going with here. That's the storyline I'm sticking with. I don't know where you lost it, but at the end,
you were talking about the storylines with Auburn that should have been talked about.
I'm just glad they're not being talked about. Like, it's fine to mention. Mickey Dean's had a very nice career. He's a very successful career. He deserves the mentions and the honorations that come. Honorations? That's not a word. Honorariums that come with such a long and successful career. He absolutely does. But I'm glad that's not dominating. I'm glad the storylines of, what does it mean for Emily Carasoni and Eugene Linty and Hannah Sparks? All these things, we don't know. But I'm glad that's not the dominant headline. I'm glad that the on-field is giving so much to talk about that's not at the forefront of everybody's minds. That's my 2 cents on it, but I don't think it's really changed a whole lot being here this week. I think it's pretty much still where it was at the beginning of the week in terms of the chatter around the process.
All right. Well, I'll let you go on this, Justin. Give me a Big 12 game today, an SEC game, if you get them in today, that you're circling as you're most interested and invested in seeing what happens there.
I think Arkansas, Missouri should be interesting if we get it in. I think Arkansas, Missouri could be a really interesting game. I also think Georgia, Florida, by the way, could be a very interesting game. Like Tony Baldwin said it in his presser yesterday, like Georgia, Florida in the postseason, there's just some magic there that goes with that. But I like Arkansas, Missouri, and I think that's in the morning block. So that's one that I think we might have a shot at getting in personally. Big 12 game. I mean, the kicker for me is it's tough for me to say I want to see what one of the big teams is made of. But that BYU game, I'm very curious for what BYU is going to do in this tournament. Based on what we've seen from Kansas, what we've seen from Texas Tech, the different side of both, I'm very curious for what it means we're going to see from BYU, who's kind of in that same bubble camp a little bit, who've had their successes, who've had their ups and downs. I'm just really curious for what we're going to see from BYU. And then, I guess UCF's kind of in that same camp. They're on the right side of the bubble, but at the same time, they've had their ups and their downs. I'm curious for what that's going to mean, too.
Should be a fun day across the board. I agree. UCF Baylor, that's the late game here in Oklahoma City. Big game, 4 versus 5. UCF, certainly with a win there, could help their cause and bring some cushion. A loss could make things somewhat interesting for the next few days. That's a big game. UCF's first game here ever at this stadium. And then BYU, I agree with you. That's a tricky game for Oklahoma State here at the top of the hour. The Cougars trying to make a run. So there's some interesting storylines at both leagues, Justin. Tell the audience, obviously, what you and Paige Halstead are up to in Auburn, Alabama, and what they can expect.
Well, right now we're watching it rain. No, I'm kidding. I mean, we are watching it rain, but that's not the answer to your question. No, it's actually been a really fun week. Paige is doing a lot of, digital stuff, sitting down one-on-one. Yesterday, 2-on-1 with Lauren Krings and Alex Honnold from Missouri with some different athletes and getting their thoughts on games, but also just perspectives in general. I mean, we've got recaps from these marathon games that are coming or have come, hopefully are not coming any longer. Let's all say it about prayer. But we're doing a little bit of everything. Here from Auburn. We've got some personality stuff. We've got some written stuff. Just a little bit checking all the boxes, making sure everything from the SEC is on D1 softball.
And Eric,
all right, Justin, Yep, go ahead.
Eric, I would say you just got the lineups. Before we let Justin go, what are you noticing for the starting lineups today?
Well, and we're going to get into this more with Ashton Slaughter here when she joins the show in a few minutes. But we've been discussing what would Kenny Gajewski do against BYU? Would he throw Lexi Kilfoyle? Would he try to save her? The answer is, for now, he's saving her. Ivy Rosenberry will get the start for Oklahoma State in the circle against BYU in this matchup. So that's interesting. Ashton Slaughter, who obviously covers Oklahoma State on the side, will join us and get his reaction to that momentarily. But that's a big one. Chloe Temples will get the ball for BYU. No surprise there. The Agbayani sisters are in the lineup for BYU of note there. But, so Kilfoyle not starting in this game. Steve Gold, Justin, this is for Justin because no one breaks down umpiring better than Justin does. Steve Gold is the home plate umpire. Megan Rabin is the first base umpire. Mike Burwell, third base. That's the crew here at the Big 12 Championship.
Okay. That's not a bad crew. Burwell and Rabin were both on Bedlam last week, so they've seen Oklahoma State very recently. Steve Gould doesn't have it. He doesn't call too bad of a plate game, so maybe you'll have a nice track for
yeah, very good. See, I told you he's good analysis on the umpiring there.
Yeah,
all right, so you and Paige will have coverage from D1 softball. Hopefully you get to see some softball yourself in person, Justin. But if it makes you feel better, we're thinking about you every time they do a Dr. Pepper promo on the new video. So, with that.
I appreciate you.
Hi, Justin.
We'll see you.
That's Justin McLeod checking in from the SEC tournament in Auburn, Alabama. For the SEC tournament. We'll see how that weather plays out today, and it'll be interesting how that one plays out. But that's the lineup for Oak State. Busy day. UCF Baylor late night too, Vic. That's a big game, as I mentioned, for the Knights against Baylor, making their debut at the Hall of Fame Stadium. That's one that obviously I'll be very invested in listening there. But obviously we're about 20 minutes from the first picture between Oklahoma State and BYU. Let's bring in my good friend Ashton Slaughter, who is the veteran, his third Big 12 tournament. He's been showing me around, Vic, which is a big, tall task. As you know, that's not easy showing me around. So
no,
I'm going to bring him in. I'm going to unplug my headset here so he can hear your questions here. And Ashton, you slide in. This is the Collinsworth slide in, Vic.
I like it. You know they're like a professional. Appreciate Ashton joining us and taking over for you. Now, Ashton, you heard Eric talk about Ivy Rosenberry getting to start today for the Cowgirls, dealing with stuff of what I've read and what one of her teammates read with some cracked ribs. But she's been a bulldog the last couple of weeks battling through. How confident is Coach Gajewski giving her the ball to start out this Big 12 tournament versus BYU?
Yeah, well, I'm going to backtrack a little bit there, then I'll answer your question. So, yeah, it sounds like she's got a fractured rib. And so just to kind of give a little background on this, Gajewski told us originally that whenever she pitched, she didn't feel any pain in between pitches whenever she breathed. But then we talked with Ivy earlier in the week, and she said, no, I actually do kind of hurt when I pitch, because there is a lot of rotation that goes into pitching, especially around that rib area. But she's been trying to mess with her technique a little bit, catch her breath in between a little bit more pitches. But he's obviously very confident in Ivy Rosenberry. She's going to be an All-American candidate. He made sure to get her to the 100-inning mark last weekend against Bedlam in that Bedlam series. But he's clearly very confident with her. They both said, and Gajewski and Ivy both said that her injury can't get any worse, but also it can't really heal until she just rests. And she's not going to have much rest, they hope, for another month or so as they hope to close out the season here in Oklahoma City. But he's obviously very confident in giving her some shine. I didn't really know which way they were going to go, whether it was going to be Ivy or Lexi. I kind of saw both ways. They talked about last weekend about how not wanting to give teams any more film on Lexi, but they also we saw last weekend against Bedlam, they brought Lexi in for relief of Kyra Aycock and for Ivy Rosenberry. So we could see a similar situation today where Lexi still gets some burn just maybe later in the game. But for now, Ivy Rosenberry, fractured rib and all, is going to be in the circle.
I know a lot of the talk going into the season was the Cowgirl offense when you lose the firepower that they had. How pleased has Coach Gajewski been not only of the offense sustaining this level, but finding different players contributing up and down the lineup, especially with a lot of youth that he talked to Eric and I about when we had it on prior to the season.
Yeah, the same kind of notion that he shared with you and Eric about how him being unsure about how maybe this year was going to play out, what his lineup may look like offensively, was the same kind of notion that he shared with us all throughout the year, and especially at the beginning of the season, was, hey, we got a lot of newcomers. I believe they had 9 newcomers, transfers, and freshmen. 4 freshmen, 5 transfers, and they were losing, like you said, big names: Rachel Becker, Kylie Naomi, Cheyenne Factor. So, there were definitely spots to fill, but we have seen, whether it be a Carly Godwin on first, who was named to the All Big 12 freshman team and yesterday. And, you start to kind of look around, and young players and new players like Caroline Wong, who was also a first-team honored yesterday. They've stepped up in big ways that I'm not even sure that Gajewski knew. And he's how can you not be pleased? It's a sport like softball, like baseball, like any other diamond sport where you want to be hot at the right time. And right now, this Cowgirl offense is clicking. They had a couple, obviously, clutch innings, clutch at-bats last weekend against Oklahoma, and they hope to definitely carry that in Oklahoma City this weekend, too.
Eric kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, the possible concern of a Bedlam hangover. You win the Bedlam series in Norman, first time since the late 1990s, your first series win against Oklahoma since 1997. Well, how has he been trying to keep this team refocused on winning this Big 12 tournament after doing what they did in Norman last weekend?
Right, Victor. It was obviously a monumental victory for the program. First win, like you said, since '97. But I think that Gajewski was pretty clear with us that that's not the end goal. Sure, beating OU is great, but that wasn't the end goal. And I think that kind of projecting that message onto his team and making sure that they know that that's not the end goal is the big thing. They always talk about in Stillwater season 3, and this is the beginning of season 3. There's fall ball, there's regular season, and then there's the postseason. And season 3 has started to become almost a expected thing in Stillwater, obviously, as they're seeking their 5th straight Women's College World Series appearance. So keeping with that third season mindset is coming into the third season with clean slate. Everybody's 0-0, and it doesn't matter that they had a series victory over OU or they shut out Texas twice and beat them either. They're still got to come in here into this BYU matchup into maybe an OU game tomorrow and so on and so on. But the mindset that it's a new season and that it's win or go home, right? It's single elimination here.
Yeah. One interesting thing I don't think we talk about much. I'll finish up with this before we bring Eric back in. Carrie Eberly joining the coaching staff, first year as a pitching coach. There were a lot of questions about her, if she could help develop this staff. I've been very pleased with how she's been using her experience, being a Cowgirl, being on this stage in season 3, pitching, and now applying her wisdom on Aycock, Rosenberry, and obviously Lexi Kilfoyle. How big of a factor has she been to this pitching staff success?
When you look at the staff and specifically Eberly, Gajewski credited them for the Bedlam series. He was like, this comes down to my staff. This comes down to me trusting them, and that's why they're in the position that they're in. Because whether it's Eberly or whether it's Vanessa Fletcher, the hitting coach, they have very, very much this season come to Gaeska with their own philosophies, their own way of doing things. He's just had to sit back and be like, okay, I'm going to trust you guys. And clearly it's paid off. With Carrie Eberle, she had the idea going into last week to start Kyrie Cock and then bring in Lexi to, end up going with Ivy. And those are tough decisions to not throw out your ace out there against a team like OU and wanting to get that first bite of the series. But you trusted Carrie, and Carrie has done like you said, a great job this season taking over for John Barfelt, the longtime OSU pitching coach there. But I mean, the impact that she has had on Ivy Rosenberry has been something. I mean, the senior transfer has had a good career in Stillwater, but nothing like this year, where she's a potential All-American and is having a career best year. And I think that those two things go hand in hand. And Carrie too, like Ivy, transferred from Virginia Tech and then ended up having some of her best year, her best season at Oklahoma State. So that's kind of a funny little note there too. It seems like that the two were almost meant for each other in a way. They were supposed to build each other up. So.
That connectivity, bringing them together, making it work out. Ashton, I know you get ready for a first pitch. We're going to look forward for your work all weekend long at d1softball.com with the post-game press conferences and media. Thank you so much for hopping on, and make sure you don't give Eric too hard for time in that press box. Okay, sir?
I'm trying, like he said, I have to be his tour guide, but I wouldn't want to be a tour guide for anybody else. So.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that.
I'll leave Eric on now.
Let's slide Eric Lopez back in before we wrap up our pregame show, Eric. We're less than 15 minutes from first pitch. You heard Ashton's thoughts, Eric. They get ready to have the anthem. And your final thoughts, sir, before we wrap up here. What you're looking for in Oklahoma City today?
Well, let's go over a couple quick hits from the rest of the country. Pac-12 championship gets really going for the last time in Palo Alto. Arizona State beat Oregon State in the playing game. The game to watch in that tournament, couple of one, it jumps to mind. Washington, Arizona. The winner of that game, can they make a run to that championship game and maybe get a last-minute host spot over in Alabama or at Florida State, etc.? Does that happen out there? Utah, opening round game. I believe they're playing Oregon. They need to win to secure perhaps their chances to make the NCAA tournament. Big Ten in Iowa City. Indiana playing Northwestern for the fourth time since Friday. You want to make the tournament? You need to beat Northwestern if you're Indiana. Simple as that to have a chance. Nebraska, what an opportunity for them. Can they make a run in the Big Ten tournament? I think that's something to watch in Iowa City. We've addressed the SEC, obviously, there. Sunbelt gets going in full swing. And then here, Vic, I think this game coming up in a few minutes is big. And then the UCF Baylor game. Let's talk a little bit about that one, Vic.
Yes.
Nightcap, UCF first game. Sarah Willis, first team All Big 12. They go up against that Baylor pitching staff with Aaliyah Binford and Crandall. They only scored one run in those three games. The weather played a factor in Waco. A lot of wind and rain. As of now, it's beautiful in Oklahoma City, more of a hitter's park. But interesting matchup there in the late nightcap to see how those two teams match up here for the fourth time this season. A game that UCF needs to feel, to stay on that right side of the bubble and feel comfortable, Victor. If you lose that game to Baylor, I think it's an uncomfortable few days for UCF. It's a tough spot. So it's a big game for them. I think Baylor, no matter what, is secured into a 2 seed. I know you've asked me about chances of them hosting. I just don't see that. Maybe if they win the Big 12 tournament, we can revisit that. But to me, it's a bigger game for UCF.
What I'm looking forward to is in the ACC 4-5 matchup, Virginia versus Clemson. Joanna Harden, what she's done with that Virginia program. If they beat Clemson for the third time this season, that all but stamps the Cavaliers' first NCAA tournament bid since 2010. Impressive series wins against Clemson at Duke a month ago. I think Virginia, if they beat Clemson again, they can make they can punch their ticket to the tournament. Florida State, Notre Dame, with the hosting bubble 14, 15, 16 being as fluid as it is, if you're Florida State, you don't want to lose again to Notre Dame like you did a couple of weeks ago. If you're Virginia Tech, you don't want to lose to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has a lot of offense, a lot of firepower with Coach Morales. If you're Virginia Tech, if you want to try and backdoor your way to hosting potentially, don't lose this opening game to Georgia Tech. And, of course, in the Sun Belt, we'll be looking at Texas State, Louisiana. Eric and I are going to talk more about all the situations and the ramifications of the games that get played and the games that may not get played, depending on what Justin and Paige had to deal with in Auburn with the weather.
They might still be in the stadium tonight by the time I'm in the hotel sleeping. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll definitely
I could get
take a look at all of that. Unbelievable.
Are you going to join me tomorrow? Are you going to join me tomorrow for the semifinal?
I'll join you tomorrow. I'll join you tomorrow. That'll be what, 4? That'll be 5 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Central before the semifinal.
Check your look. Let's check that time. Get that time correct for our audience. An hour before the first semifinal game, we will be on the air, which I believe is 5 Central, 6 Eastern. I want to say, but obviously keep it on In the Circle SB on YouTube all day and night. We're going to have the press conferences from the Big 12 Championship exclusively on our channel there. We'll have hopefully I'll get some interviews as well for D1 softball on the social media pages in the Circle SB as well. We're going to have another pregame show here tomorrow night. I'm actually working on a couple of
it'll be at 4 p.m. It'll be at 4 p.m. Central time, 5 p.m. Eastern time, because the first semifinal is at 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern.
So there you go. So Vic will join me, which I'm happy about. You've done a magnificent job producing. Thanks to Justin McLeod for joining us from Auburn, Alabama. That was fun to have. We'll have some more guests next 2 days. We'll actually do a post-game show one of the next couple of nights, unless, maybe we won't.
Unless we have more 14-inning marathons like we did yesterday.
Holy macro. It's been wild. By the way, McNeese, keep an eye on him in the Southland. Dropped the first game.
Lost to Incontinent Word.
Can't afford to be eliminated. I don't think they get in as an at-large if they don't win that conference tournament. I don't think they have enough. And then CUSA is one to watch. Liberty could steal a bid if they don't win that tournament in CUSA. So I have a feeling, Vic, it's still going to get a lot more mayhem than even yesterday, which I would argue might have been the best Wednesday of a conference championship week in a while. Recent memory.
In a while.
Sport. Yeah. So they are cleaning the field.
And on Thursday, and today would be no exception. I got a feeling.
Oh, you're probably right. You're probably right, sir. All right. Any last thoughts, Vic?
No final thoughts. I hope you enjoyed your Whataburger last night after the long night you and Ashton had.
That was magnificent. That was a must-have while I'm here. I know I've got other recommendations during the show. I'll get to it as I can. I have a little more flexibility scheduling-wise the next 2 days. But today, I'm here sitting pretty much here for the next however many hours it takes to get these board games in.
You're locked in.
It's beautiful here. It's beautiful here. The Kansas radio is next door. They're getting set up for their game later today. So, again, go to ESPN Plus. All the Big 12 games today on Big 12 Plus. Pete Sousa and Natasha Watley, Vic. The Natasha Watley.
And all we will say, folks, is that we are efforting to have one of them on in some capacity in the next few days. Stay tuned.
I think that'll happen. Not today, because in fairness, they got about to call all 4 games. So that's going to be pretty wild. But, yeah, they are here in attendance. And certainly the attendance will also pick up as well. So all the games today starting here at the top of the hour. Oklahoma State, BYU, followed by Oklahoma and Kansas, Texas Tech, and then the nightcap, UCF and Baylor, all on ESPN Plus as the lineups are being exchanged. Card right now. You have any bold predictions, Vic?
I think the SEC only gets 2 games in. And I think Indiana stuns Northwestern and puts their ticket to the NCAA tournament.
We'll see if that all plays itself out. That is going to be crazy there. That's going to be some fun stuff. And I know you're keeping an eye on Division II, the regionals. If that gets going, where can people find the updates on that?
Follow my work on Division II at D2 Tuesday. That's the letter D, the number 2 Tuesday. Regionals going on there right now. We will have a full breakdown of that throughout the weekend. And, well, I'll be tweeting softball and other craziness on my timeline at Catbird Red. So make sure you follow me there.
All right, folks, we're going to let you go on that note. Thanks again to Justin McLeod joining us from Auburn, Alabama. Thanks to Ashton Slaughter. Ashton Slaughter will have recaps of all the games as here in Oklahoma City. We'll have post-game videos, press conferences, and some interviews throughout the day and night. Keep it on D1 Softball and on In the Circle SB, your best coverage of all college softball. For Victor Anderson back in the studios in beautiful Orlando, which I heard it's about 100 there. 100?
Too freaking high. Ridiculous.
It's in the mid-80s with some nice breeze here in Oklahoma City. Eric Lopez saying so long for now from Oklahoma City. We thank you for tuning in to this In the Circle live from Oklahoma City here at the Big 12 Championships. We'll talk to you soon.
Top podcast is out. Good night, Canada.